Expedient. DR done right is a pretty bold title in my opinion. I didn't write it, but I like it. I think the way we do things is the right way in my opinion. I want to share that today. And I want to kind of explain why. When we started doing DR, the whole goal and everything we were trying to build was all about making it easy and automating as much as we possibly could. And a lot of this comes from life experiences. I do snowmobiling. Anybody into snowmobiling at all? Or winter activities? Okay. Have you ever gone out into avalanche territory? Okay, so if you go out to avalanche territory, you wear these beacons that are attached to your chest, and you have these basically big balloons that you can inflate if you get stuck in an avalanche, and it takes you, floats you to the top. And the first rule when you go through avalanche training, anybody have any guess of what it is? Yeah, don't talk about avalanche training, you're right. The one right after that one is don't panic. Because what's the first thing people do when they get into an avalanche? Panic. I mean, what the hell? You have tons of snow coming down right at you. Who isn't going to panic in that situation? And that's how a lot of disasters really go. There's a lot of panic. There's a lot of, there's a lot going on when a disaster is actually being declared. We wanted to make sure it was simple as possible when you declare the disaster with us. And you thought all about that when you were in a right frame of mind, usually, hopefully, weeks, months, if not years, before you have to actually declare that disaster. Same thing goes with avalanche training. That's why the number one thing they tell you, don't panic, and they tell you don't panic probably 1,000 times that first day, because that's the number one thing people do, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen when you're declaring your disaster. So let me get right into it. So what do we talk about when we talk about disaster recovery? We built a suite that we call Pushbutton DR that is really a group of technologies that are available to anybody. Yes, we're a CSP, but we're not really doing a lot of magic as far as the technology stacks go. One of the biggest things, and I'll walk through kind of how this works, is the VSRX virtual firewalls. So when you're virtualizing the firewall, all the rules that you're creating, the IPs that you're running there, when you're failing the mode of the secondary site, they come with it. That's a big advantage there. The virtual servers all on VMware. We have done it on Hyper-V. We can go inside AWS and Azure. The VMware stuff definitely makes it easy. Obviously, the replication was Zerto. And then to have a network in place to actually do that replication. So in between all of our data centers and cloud pops, we run private 100 gig rings. That's pretty nice to have. Not everybody has that, so you can build other private networks or even do it over public internet if you need to. And the big magic as far as what we do with DR is actually announcing the IP space via BGP. So when that public IP fails from the primary site to the secondary site, it comes up and says, okay, I'm over here, I'm present, so no DNS change is needed. So I'll walk you through a detailed environment on how that works. So if you take a look at this diagram here, it shows you that we have a primary site set up. We have a public IP on that main course of that virtual firewall. We have a secondary site sitting there waiting to go. All the replication is being done, obviously, via Zerto. And then we have that orchestration failover on top. And we're announcing BGP from that virtual firewall. So on that virtual firewall, that's where we're actually announcing our public IP space. And that's really one of the key things to kind of note here. So how can we do that? We actually were a network provider when we started into this industry. So we own a lot of our public IP space, but if anybody can announce their own IP space or works with a provider like us that can do that on your behalf, you could actually do the same thing here. So that public IP space is announced via BGP at that firewall level. So when you fail over, it's moving the virtual firewalls, the servers, that public IP, and BGP is bringing it back up to make sure that everything stays the same. So what does that mean? There's nothing that you have to change up top here. So the remote users coming in via VPN, user-based VPN, whatever it might be, hitting your website, however they're coming in and accessing your network, nothing changed to them. Okay, so if you've done DR, and I'm sure there's probably plenty of scars and war wounds inside of this room we can tell stories. But the biggest thing that usually messes up when you're actually doing that secondary site, bringing it back online, is the actual network. So focusing and automating as much of the network as possible is one of the ways we've dramatically simplified what we can do for disaster recovery. Okay, so that's one side of it. The other side is how can you actually declare that disaster? And this is where we spent a ton of time developing with Zerto, something, again, anybody in the room can do. And we use, and I even put up the API calls, and I know this presentation will be available, and I'll show you and walk you through all this, but these are the API calls that we use to simplify how you actually declare a disaster. Because again, the virtual machines, the network, all those pieces, that's one element. But if you have to walk into a process where you have to click 10 different buttons to actually make this disaster recovery work, it's really not something that's simple. You have to push a button. And you'll actually see, we're going to go through and do a demo of the actual interface itself, but you can see on the right-hand side, that's a live screenshot of what our product actually looks like and what we developed. So we run a piece of software called the Support Management Console, and that's where all the ticketing is done for Expedient and asset tracking, and it does things like this. So we abstract all the technology underneath it, bring it up to an easy interface to allow any user to have simplification of really the services they're using from us. All right. So we'll walk through, what this looks like and, maybe give you some ideas as far as maybe what you could develop inside of your own world. So this is our Support Management Console. This is the interface they would log into via the web GUI. Very simple. You can see we're not putting graphs and all kinds of crazy figures on it. It's what you need to actually know what's going on inside of your DR environment. We wanted to make sure it was as simple as possible. Some of the things that we have, you can see, kind of going through it here. You have the RPO, which is very important, but if you look under live failover and under testing, you actually see what the RTO was. So we actually want to push our customers as much as we possibly can to go and actually test your disaster recovery. That's the number one thing that you can do to kind of make sure that you don't panic inside of disaster recovery. If you just tested it, quarterly basis or, a monthly basis, you'll know exactly if it will work and if it won't work. And so when you come onto this console, you'll know exactly what's going on. You'll see the RPO, so you'll know how much data you potentially lose. You'll know your RTO, and you'll know exactly what to expect once you go and press that button. So the other side of this is we have abstracted just a few elements of the Zerto console just to give you, some easy access to things. So we do have the VPG identifier there if you need to do any support things. We can actually we're pulling some of that information on that individual VPG to make sure that it's, you don't have to log into the Zerto console to see this. This is the basics you'll actually want to understand. We'll go click through some of these other ones where you can see from the tabs ahead. We have the VMs that are inside of the VPGs, things that are important in understanding during troubleshooting. What were the tasks, what were the logs, what did they look like as you kind of need some of this information, but really it's not extremely important to actually do your actual disaster declaration. So here we're showing just the basic with VMs in here. The environment that we're showing and doing this in this test is just a simple VM environment. We have a lot of our customers are way more complex than this. A lot of the customers have multiple VPGs, hundreds of VMs inside of here, but this is a simple, kind of quick demo. It shows all the different tasks that you had inside of there. This is how we're actually pulling the RTO back, so we know exactly from Zerto how long it took to actually get that VM up online and the VPG online, which is something that's pretty important. And then here you can see all the different logs that we have in the background where we're constantly going, and you can see who's actually doing what inside of Zerto. We wanted to make the button, again, very simple, and the framework very simple, so you can hit it via a regular website, you can hit it via mobile phone, and you'll see the toggle the button here. So what we just did is actually to refresh the data. It pulls it every minute, but sometimes we have customers that they want to know every second, so they sit there and mash the refresh button all the time. It's like they're trying to get concert tickets or something, and so they can actually see what that looks like for the impatient folks, but it's going to auto-update every minute. So we have that button that toggles. You can actually see if it's a test or a live failover. When we actually do the failover, then we actually add some other tracking elements into it. So Expedient's a 24/7 managed service shop. We always have Expedient employees ready and willing to help our clients in any way possible. So when we actually hit that button, we let them know that this is what's actually going to happen. The support team is actually going to get a ticket created saying that the failover is occurring. So even if it's test, we're going to know about it, so we're going to be ready and available if they actually need any assistance. And another thing that's nice about that is we constantly get hit with auditors, believe it or not, sometimes people tell tall tales, and they say, okay, we heard that the last time we ran the DR test, it worked flawlessly. Well, we know exactly what happened because we log every one of those in our ticketing system. We log it all here. The data's all there. It kind of shows that. So a lot of times executive management is really interested in this, especially in compliance and auditors people, because they're really interested in knowing exactly what happened. So we initiated the failover. Again, it's sitting here running. It's not going to auto refresh. We don't want to kill the API. We don't want to kill the actual ZVM with all the different API calls to it. So we'll mash that refresh button again. It'll jump pretty significantly, so in a few more seconds here, it's going to finish because it was just a simple VM. But if we were doing this again for a live customer base, it's going to be multiple VPGs, it's going to be the firewalls that I showed you, the load balancers, all the virtual machines are basically going to be bootstormed up on the secondary site. Our cloud platform underneath is a complete VMware software-defined stack, so we're running vSAN underneath, all flash, utilizing NSX as well, so we can do a lot of cool things on the network side of things, but then it can actually handle the boot storm of it. So you can see on the test, it's going to say that it was successful, and we completed it. It'll give you the RTO, so what does that say? I can't read it there. Few minutes, 6 minutes, or what does it say? I don't know, two minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it is. So the RTO would actually get it up and running. So now you know, and you have this documented to exactly what's going to take me to do my test. All right. So just a quick kind of demo to kind of show you the simplicity as far as what we're doing with Pushbutton DR, simplifying not only the core infrastructure of it with Pushbutton DR, but also then the actual implementation actually when you want to declare a disaster. So our focus is simple is better. So the interface obviously available on any device. We have clients that constantly try to push that, so they've hit it from any device. We actually have a user that can do it from his Tesla. Obviously, since there's a web browser on there, so he does a lot from his Tesla, and we can initiate that failover within minutes. So within a simple login, you're up there ready to go. It gives you the info that you need, not more than what you need. So the basic RPO, RTO, which is really, really important to understand where you're going to be at. That's great. All the basics of the VM. The Zerto native tools obviously have a ton of information, a ton of analytics. Those are great, but in a time of emergency, when you're trying not to panic, you really don't need those things to actually declare a disaster. And then all the different benefits of Pushbutton DR and orchestration is really just the kind of the key and the secret sauce to kind of make this all work. So I went through this, pretty quickly because there's usually questions when I show this. So we have bigger demos on Pushbutton DR in general. So if you want to see that, we actually just completed another demo that we posted on our YouTube channel where we're showing some benefits where we have a rogue user coming in and deleting a file structure inside of Linux, which is something that's more of a common disaster that we see today. So automation failures is one of those things that does happen. Malware, crypto locker, things like that, that's actually the disasters we're seeing. So utilizing, if you haven't seen it yet, the individual commits on the actual journal, which is pretty cool. We did a demo video there. So you can check that out. And I'll be in the booth the rest of the day today, so if you have any individual questions, you don't feel comfortable asking them now, we can do that. Or I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, however you want to reach out to me, feel free to do so. I'm always willing to kind of help out any way I can, whether you're building a solution or you need guidance on where to even get started, always happy to assist here. So with that, I'll open up the questions.
I have a quick question regarding the declaration, disaster declaration. Do you integrate with other tools like communication tools, emergency communication tools and things like that, or is it just strictly on the infrastructure DR network side?
So it's on that. Our support management console then does have an open API. So if you wanted to pull a trigger from our actual console, you could. So if you wanted it to talk to something else, you could make that happen. So what are you thinking about exactly?
We're using alertifying in our DR when we have a disaster recovery or some kind of incident. We utilize that to broadcast to our entire user base.
Yep.
And DR switching over and so on and so forth. We want to implement something that automates that.
Yeah, so that's something you could easily, trigger if you wanted to like push something via Twilio or something like that. I mean, that's how we do like our mass notifications. So that's something that the integration could be done there pretty easily. Sir?
You mentioned NSX. What kind of integration do you guys have? What functions do you push?
So on the NSX side of it here, so we're running NSX-V on all of our platform. The way we build out our network inside of our cloud environment, it's basically a flat layer 2 network across all of our different data centers. So a lot of the NSX core functionality, whether it's distributed routers or distributed firewalls, that's all available for our consumers to use. And then if we needed to bring in and do layer 2 VPN or something like that, that's all available as well. So almost every native feature of NSX is available for our clients. Any other questions? Like I said, I'll be at the booth. If you haven't stopped by yet, we have a Nintendo there. We're giving away Nintendos, Ataris, all kinds of cool 8-bit gaming that's bringing me back. So again, we like to keep it pretty simple when we're deploying these solutions. There's nothing better than a good game of Tecmo Bowl, so we have that at the booth. So please come by and challenge me. Thanks, everybody.